Welcome to the Keelhauled Podcast. I'm your host, CaptainLogun, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today. So tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week, it is the beginning of season 17, and boy, howdy, do we have a lot to talk about. There are patch notes to go through. There are feelings that we have to reconcile with. There are teases that we need to get into, and all that and more in this week's episode of Keelhauled Podcast. But before I get into any of that, I have to thank the patrons. They're the ones that went over to patreon.com/Keelhauled Podcast to show their support for this content and more. So thank you to them for heading over there and doing that. Just a reminder, next week is going to be the one where we're actually doing the recording for the Keelhauled Gold Hoarders. They're going to be recording with me hopefully on the 23rd of August as we sit down to kind of talk about Sea of Thieves season 17, anything that might want to talk about as far as season 16, things like that as we kind of go forward. So they are helping with a lot of stuff, not just internet, not just software, but they're also helping as far as just keeping me afloat. I am moving across the country and I'm doing so with help, but effectively I am uprooting my entire life, and it's because of their support that I'm able to help take care of those bills. It's going to be very expensive, unfortunately, and as a result it makes a world of difference when even just the one person comes in with a bit of support. So I appreciate them more than I can ever truly show. This is what you guys are doing for me on the regular basis. It makes a world of difference. So thank you to them for doing this. And as such, I like to call out their names during each episode to let them know that I appreciate them by name. So thank you to A-Chick, L-Cute, Balls, Blue Turtle V1, Captain Chonky, Captain Longsharts, Chateau Neuf, Super Pack, Zombie Killer, Cosmic Johnson, Static Mirror, Davram TV, El Jefe Esteban, Godhammer 6, Carl Embo of Embo Family Gaming, Kylia the Aficionado, King Hot Dog Pig, Nightstar 1980, Elvrin Vramir, which hopefully I'm still saying that right, Evil Morpheus, Space Admiral Ors, Xbox Mike 29, Regis Stella the Brony Pirate, Norwegian, Rabbit Raccoon, Ribloid, Shoe Daddy 13, Skamelt 666, Tales of the Sea, The Demon Jester, Tommy D, TN Professor, Wailing Witch, Big Bad Pad, Mina Fairy, Heger Owl, Jeff H, Captain Duckweed, Evil Martha, Peter Miller, Rooskidoo, Thor Von Blitz, Luke Lore the Insipid Ghost, and Zam Wow. Thank you all so much for your support. It really does mean the world to me. And actually, I'm kind of wondering if the Demon Jester, if that is actually a reference to One Piece. I just kind of thought about that. I don't know if it is. It'd be interesting to find out. But anyway, thank you all so much. And with that, let's get into it. First on today's docket, let's talk about the rare ruby hat. Now, I wanted to bring this up because I know I've talked about it in the past, but I do want to remind everyone that there is still time for you to work on this if you can get access to the punch card. You can purchase it through Ancient Coin if you are looking to do so. You just have to use reward points to redeem for Ancient Coin, which, you know, if you are getting reward points, just make sure you're logging in to see if, or logging onto Microsoft Bing, doing quizzes, doing puzzles, doing their searches, stuff like that to continue to work on it. You can also log into PC games and console games. You have Game Pass Ultimate to earn points that way. There's lots of ways to go ahead and earn points through Microsoft. And if you redeem, or if you get enough of them, you can redeem to get the rare ruby hat. Now I have been working my way through the punch card. I've had everything except for the mobile Bing searches completed, which I hate the word Bing. It's such a weird one. It reminds me of Bing Cherry. But I am 4 out of 5 days after trying to remember to actually get on my phone at a certain time and go into the Bing app. I do click on like one of the like suggested articles, or I'll go back and just do a quick search. And then when I scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's the option to look up to search for different things. Clicking on one of those suggested search topics has actually been really helpful. I think it was Godhammer who recommended that I do that instead of going to actually just do a blanket search on there. So I'll go down to like if there's an article, they'll usually have like related searches. One of those related searches, for whatever reason, actually triggers the day complete for the Being Mobile challenge on this. So one more day, I'll have that finished up, and then I can claim the reward for the rare ruby hat. Still not quite sure why my redemption of Microsoft points for the ancient coin didn't properly work. But it seems like people are starting to get some of those codes. I've had some folks reach out to me letting me know that they've had duplicates provided to them. So that's one of those situations where like I've got a couple of codes to give away, and I'm going to be doing that throughout the podcast. So just keep an ear out. I'll be giving one away this episode, and then one away next episode, so that you can actually have like an opportunity to get it and folks kind of know what's going on with that. So just as kind of like a heads up. But for example, like I over the last few days, I think I've earned, what is this? Actually, it's been a while since I checked this. So I've got about 375 points. I got 10 for playing a PC game. I got a weekly bonus of 150. I got 10 more for playing a Game Pass game, which can be Sea of Thieves. Then there's like the weekly Game Pass streaks where I've gotten 200 points for that. I've gotten 5 points for using the Xbox app on mobile. There's lots of ways that they offer to give you points. So just be sure you're taking a look at that. Make sure that you're working towards those if you get an opportunity to try and work towards this. So just as kind of like a heads up. Still very annoying. I hate that that's a thing that people are having trouble with, because it should be seamless. It should be very capable to be able to do that. So all of that being said, it is kind of like a bummer that it's happening that way, right? So anyway, just wanted to touch base with you guys on that. Let you know I personally am still working towards it, and I hope you are too. Next on today's docket, let's talk about Season 17. This has been quite an interesting beginning to the season. If you guys don't know and you haven't been listening and you're just catching up with it, we are now getting into the beginning week of Season 17, where there is new Plunder Pass and there's new rewards to earn. There's also new commendations to earn, which are now through the Adventures of Sea, which has replaced the name for the Build Rats. And I guess now that I'm getting into it, I might as well talk about that. So if you don't know, for the longest time, ever since the inception of Build Rat commendations back in July of 2020 or 2018, we've had Build Rats kind of governing some of the day-to-days and the adventures going on out in the Sea of Thieves beyond what the normal faction quests were. You know, for many a time, we were just doing stuff for the different trade companies. And as Build Rats came in, they were kind of introducing events or things to do. And it started off with Skeleton Thrones in July. And ever since then, it's always been the Build Rats have always been like the follow your nose, you know, like Duke was always kind of telling us what was going on in Sea of Thieves. If you didn't know, they would be the point of entry. Like they were at every single tavern. They were always kind of telling us, this is what's up. We have had very little in the communication from the Build Rat representatives. Now, to be fair, there has only been 2 Build Rat that we know of. There's Duke, which ended up being a Dark Lord, finally revealed, and joined the Dark Brethren. And then we had, Lorena at the Outposts, who hides the mangoes really well. And she's been our point of contact since really since Duke kind of switched over when they finally came out with the Tall Tales for A Pirate's Life. So for the longest time, like she has been kind of like letting us know, not only like here are your letters of recommendation, which earn you 1 level of reputation, which back when trade companies were capped at level 50 was very impactful, given that at level 40, you were about halfway through the reputation grind to get from 1 to 50. So having each month give you a new set of letters of recommendation was very impactful for the way it was. Even so, when it got raised up to 75, now that there are effectively what is it? Five rings total, 500 levels, I think, total that you can earn through each of the trade companies. The distinctions are what's important, and the levels less so. You can still burn through some bilge rat coins, doubloons, not bilge rat coins. You can burn through some doubloons to pick up levels, but the levels come fairly quickly nowadays. It's not too difficult to kind of work your way through those distinctions if that's what you're focusing on, which then leaves Lorena with the task of informing people what's going on in Sea of Thieves. Well, right now she has been kind of just a passing glance as you go out of the tavern. She doesn't really have any new information. The last time she got updated was actually season 15 when they introduced the update to Hunter's Call. She was not updated with any kind of dialogue or lore for season 16, and that is remaining true for season 17. Which means that all she's really good for in Sea of Thieves as a whole is to gain access to certain emotes and costumes through like emotes, as far as like the barrel emote, because that was part of a season. Rare decided it was integral enough to the hiding thing that not only did they build out that whole hiding in a barrel thing, but they still wanted to give players at the time access to that barrel because it was a tactical advantage if you played through that season and got that barrel. So realistically, there is very little purpose for Lorena. And Mike Chapman has gone onto Twitter and didn't have to, but went out into the Twitter space and decided to kind of communicate with a lot of folks who were kind of commenting about how when they changed the icon and the name of the bilge rat commendations from what they currently were to Adventures of Sea, like Adventures on Seas. Actually, now I need to take a look and actually see what they actually called them. It's the Adventures at Sea, Set Sail for Adventure. He came out and talked about how what he was saying was something that was not necessarily like the bilge rats were dead. Because I think a lot of folks were kind of concerned about why things had been changed. You know, like everyone was kind of sad to see the bilge rats commendations logos change away from the bilge rats. So Mike came out and said that the bilge rats as a group are still around. It's just the naming of the button having little to do with the commendations inside. Updates haven't been fronted by the bilge rats for a long time, and it's an odd name if you're seeing it for the first time, which I agree. I do think that it is odd that the bilge rats haven't been the ones to kind of be at the forefront of a lot of the seasonal updates, which says, in my mind, two things. One, they're breaking away from the bilge rats as the go-to for a lot of their stuff and putting the onus on the adventure voyage system. A lot of the front-facing things that they put into the game. They have a new tab now. It's the seasonal tab, which will actually talk to you about what's going on in that season. It'll show you how many weeks remain, what the overview is of it. And they're actually using the old adventure UI system here. So back when adventures were a thing, we used to have a 3-part adventure. We would have one adventure for a couple weeks where you would go and complete it, get some time limited rewards, and then you would have to wait for the next adventure to continue that story. Each story had 3 chapters or 3 acts, and at the end of the story, that was done. They would move into the next thing. So when adventures died, so did that UI system. So did that UI implementation into the main menu when you're in game. They've brought that back. They've labeled it very pretty in a very pretty fashion as seasonal stuff, which I think tracks. That it makes sense to kind of showcase the content there, as opposed to relying on the front end of the game to be the main way that people find out about new stuff going into Sea of Thieves. Because most of the time, people are going to spend a lot of their time playing the game in the actual game. They're going to spend very little time on the front end of the game where the start menu is, where you're setting things up. You don't want people spending a whole lot of time there. You want them spending time in the game. And when they have time off from doing something, they're going to, pop around and poke around in their different menus. And what better way to showcase the new content than front and center right next to the resources that they're going to need the whole time. So they've revamped the old adventure system, turned it into a seasonal system, and broken up each season into 3 different parts: Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. For season 17, they've done a good job with this by showing off that the Smuggler's Run is kind of the initial thing. Each seasonal act has different deeds, and when you complete each of those deeds, you actually get time-limited rewards. Something that they said in the past is something that they want to move away from, because they've tried to ensure that people don't feel like they're missing out. In this case, you have 1 week to complete this, or not 1 week, excuse me. You have 1 month to complete this first act before the second act starts. Now, I would imagine that much like other events and adventures that we've had in time, because this is an entire season, I don't anticipate that they are going to be looking at locking out Act 1 when Act 2 starts. I think that would be kind of a big mistake, especially for folks that have not necessarily gotten to sail much during the first month, especially if reports from content creators are saying it's not even really worth it. So that puts a detriment onto the studio to say, like, do we actually have to lock this beyond the first month? What happens if the content's not ready for the second month? How do you approach that? Well, the best thing for them to do is honestly just lock the different acts to the different months for the content that's relevant to that. So like the second act here is titled The Heist, where you are going to unlock the doors to the Royal Crest. You're going to collect the Royal Crest Fortress key from a smuggler. You have to defeat a skeleton captain on the Royal Crest Fortress. You have to steal and sell collector's paintings from the Royal Crest Fortress. You have to win heists win heist voyages. So there are different things associated with that. But that event isn't kicking up until the second month of this season, which means that they are intending for that to open up then. And I imagine that given that that is a month-long event, I imagine that it'll be interesting to see, will they lock off the second act, as that event will no longer be accessible, which then kind of puts the FOMO in me thinking, well, if Act 2 pertains to the heist event that is going on all month during September, if they are going to lock that or make it not available anymore because the event itself is going to end at the end of September or whenever the third act kicks up, then I'm a little worried that they might do that with Act 1, which again, I think would be a mistake. You want to have people engaging with that content. If they miss it for the season, then it's no different than seasonal content in the Plunder Pass, right? It'll eventually come back maybe, but for this time limited stuff, you had to be there kind of thing. And then we have, of course, like the Reaper's Fortresses, which is going to unlock in, according to this, 9 weeks, which actually says starts in 9 weeks days as opposed to 9 weeks. Because the season 17 says 13 weeks remaining, which weeks is lowercase and remaining is uppercase. So that's already like triggering me. But then like each of the different acts says starts in : 5 weeks days. And the third act says 9 weeks days. So the good news is that they got the icon actually in there for the title. If you complete all of it for the rewards. But yeah, there's definitely some stuff that's coming in pretty hot for this. It even says, actually, I just noticed on the overview, it actually says Act 2, the heist, starts in 5 weeks days. The Reaper Fortresses starts in 9 weeks days. So a little quality of life or a little quality testing maybe needs to be done. I don't know. Maybe this is something that was reported on Insiders. Who knows? They definitely need someone to go in and actually like proofread some of this stuff though. But going back to how they've kind of like introduced this stuff, instead of build rats, they've opted for setting up all of this content to be in game in the main menu. So you're free to kind of run around, and it does kind of make me sad to a degree, because I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, well, Lorena, not very kind of relevant in Sea of Thieves these days. But that doesn't change the fact that with Mike commenting that the build rats haven't been relevant. They haven't been at the forefront of of events coming out and stuff like that. It just makes me wonder, like, well, why do we have them? And more importantly, why couldn't they have been the ones at the forefront of Sea of Thieves' updates? It feels like, if anything, they were left behind by the dev team, not the community wanting them to be the kind of like finger on the pulse of Sea of Thieves, which is kind of a bummer to me, because I sit here and I think it's like, okay, well, the community likes the build rats. I think the build rats could continue on if they were given more importance, if they were given more substantial roles in Sea of Thieves. Everyone really loves Duke and what was going on there. So why is it that Rare is the one that's actually cutting them out from being able to be important in Sea of Thieves? Why is it that the Smugglers League are called the Smugglers League? Why aren't they build rats? Why aren't the people that take the commodities on the different islands, like oh gosh, Grog Soaked Eddie? Yes, Grog Soaked Eddie and his ilk. Why aren't those build rats? It seems to me that very easily they could have been build rat representatives. They don't align themselves to any particular faction. They don't align themselves as a trade company. They are just people out in the world of Sea of Thieves that are looking to earn money in fun, unique ways. You carry cargo to them. You carry kegs to them. And it feels like there is some lore tied to the smugglers, which kind of reinforces what their reasoning behind being around is. But at the end of the day, I can't help but think this was a missed opportunity, that they could have gone back and said, instead of cutting out the build rats, let's lean heavier into that and really emphasize them as a group of people, not necessarily a faction, but a group of people in Sea of Thieves that are looking to have adventures. Because I think at the end of the day, when you talk to Solomon in the cave on Smuggler's Bay, it sounds very much like what he wants is that freedom of adventure, that freedom to do what you want in Sea of Thieves and not be so burdened by companies like the Grand Maritime Union. Kadir over at Old Faithful very much wants to be, someone who enjoys the sense of adventure and not have to resort to violence anymore after rejecting the curse from the bone curse from the Reapers and hiding out. It feels like you have people that were of import in the rest of the world outside of Sea of Thieves that escaped it. They ran away from all of the responsibility, all of the history and obligation that they had with the status of their family to come to the Sea of Thieves for the sake of adventure, for the sake of something fun and unique and different, tied to freedom, tied to exploration, tied to enjoyment of being able to do whatever you want. That essence, that kind of Peter Pan and the Lost Boys essence, just brooding there for a good reason. And I think that was exactly what people enjoyed about Duke, whether he was a Dark Lord or not, whether that was always the plot for him. Everyone really loved Duke. And that was because he was such a lighthearted sense of adventure kind of guy. He was always there for the thrill of it. He wanted you to go have fun and do dumb things with things that make explosions. And I think that was exactly where I saw smugglers after going through and reading it. I thought these people should be build rats. They shouldn't be smugglers. We're all smugglers in Sea of Thieves. We all smuggle stuff, whether it's stuff that people want us to steal or not want us to steal. We're always putting something on our ship that may or may not actually belong to us. And we're trying to do so in a sneakily fashion that allows us to turn it in wherever we need to go to whoever is willing to take it, whoever's willing to pay for it. So it felt like a missed opportunity. And I'm really kind of bummed about that, because I think that at its core, there was a world where Sea of Thieves had the opportunity to call this Build Rats Return. And it brings in more of the Build Rats from the Sea of Thieves, from their hiding places, sets up shop, and removes the veil of all of the characters in the game that have been just random people on islands accepting junk from other places that don't really make a whole lot of sense, you know? And that was one of those situations where I kept thinking to myself, like, gosh, I like the idea of what smugglers are. I like that concept. I like the essence of flying under the radar on purpose, because I think that there are plenty of players out there who do enjoy ferrying goods from one place to another, but like to do so in a way that is so low key that no one really pays attention to them. If you throw an emissary up, you're a target for Reapers. If you don't, then Reapers will never see you unless they actually see you on the horizon. And even then, they may be dissuaded because you don't have a flag. They don't know what you're carrying. And that kind of anonymity is a boon to those that don't want that kind of attention, but still want to carry cargo that is of value. And some of these items that have coming in, some of the paintings and the kegs are upwards of 10 to 13,000 worth. Now, some of the skulls are less so. They're still worth around 1 to 2,500 gold. And I guarantee you, looking at it, for the few items that you get, given the vast number of messages and bottles in Barrels of Plenty, on shores where you can find different piles of loot hauls that have just been washed up from the shipwrecks, that from losing their fleet as they sailed into the Sea of Thieves through the Devil's Shroud. It's clear that there is plenty of treasure out there, and it is far more lucrative than most of the trade companies that are currently offering like most mid to high level voyages. The number of the amount of gold that you get for doing a high level gold hoarder voyage does not compare. Now, you may make more out of sheer quantity, but if you're just going toe to toe, base level quest to base level quest, smugglers are going to smoke the amount of gold value that you can earn than a gold hoarder, which does not make gold hoarder feel fun. And as much as everyone thinks gold hoarder is just kind of the easiest trade company to go with, they should still hold some value. They should still hold some amount of worth that people are wanting to actually go and engage with that, more than just the people that are out there duping keys for vaults or duping voyages for stuff like that. And it's kind of a shame to actually think about the fact that smugglers give better items, even though they're more dangerous than most of the voyages that you can actually get in Sea of Thieves from the normal trading companies. And that's a mismanagement of the value of the items that they're offering versus the value of the items that are currently on offer. It's easier to go and do a skeleton camp for 50k for a turned in orb than it is to care about animal voyages. Why would anyone want to go do four snake captures for the merchants when they can make way more for way less headache than at a skeleton camp with one orb? So there's a lot of things that I think realistically you need. The studio ought to have a team that sits down with some of the heads up there making choices at Rare and saying, we need to pull back and take a look at the bigger state of Sea of Thieves and actually address some of the big kind of like, why are we doing this? Does this genuinely make sense? Because right now it doesn't feel like it's really makes sense for us to go this route. It feels unfair for people to want to do some of the old content as well as the new content and let them choose without having such a discrepancy between things like value, depending on what they want to do. So just some weird kind of high level thoughts that I was thinking about. And I know this all kind of branched off of the fact that the build rat commendations are now called Adventures at Sea, which I agree. I think the icon is pretty. I think that the naming convention is more apt, but it is kind of sad. And I wanted to just kind of, take a moment to kind of sit here and say like, hey, for a long time, I was railing against the idea that Duke was not a Dark Lord. I was 100% sure that dude was dark, evil in some way, didn't know how, but felt it in my bones deep down. And I was proven right thanks to the Pirate's Life, but I still missed what he did for the community. And Lorena has not been able to be a sufficient replacement for that. I don't know that anyone will, but I do think that those type of characters in Sea of Thieves, and I can see the potential in Solomon. It really depends on what they do. Kadir as well. I see the potential in Sea of Thieves to do something like that with those characters. And I think having fully voice acted characters in the game for the smugglers means a lot, to be able to have that connection, have a voice in your head when you look at that character, know exactly what they sound like. Duke had that. Ramsey has that. Flame Lord. Gosh, I'm messing all their names. I'm talking like the Timu of Sea of Thieves right now. Flameheart has that. And needing to have something like that. Like, where's Belle? What's Belle up to? Why is Belle forgotten? There's so many times where I've sat here and thought, like, there are characters that are beloved that have been kind of stuffed off to the side for cadence, for content, for sandbox enrichment, for stability in the game, so many times. And I can't help but think it's going to be really hard for Rare to try and balance the story of so many characters. But I talked a little bit about this on an upcoming episode with a guest of mine. But I'm really hoping that Rare is able to take their seasons and narrow in on specific storylines for that season and kind of leapfrog what their thoughts and plans are for that story as they progress it from season to season. So, for example, Reapers, we would get a Reaper update furthering the story for Flameheart. In season 17, they start to bring in more teases and relevance to the Grand Maritime Union, eventually trying to force their way into Sea of Thieves. Then I hope with like season 18, they start to go back to the Devil's Roar, and as such, they start to worry about like the Flameheart story with the Dark Ancients and the relevance with the Widow, as well as like the Orb, and building out like a new kind of turn-in point for the Reaper's Bones out in the Roar, where they're hoping to drive more engagement, right? And then in season 19, they go right back to the Grand Maritime Union with a unification of the trade companies with the smugglers to help try and battle the introduction of the Grand Maritime Union coming in and trying to establish a foothold on one of the outposts for Sea of Thieves, where they take over the outpost and just become a Grand Maritime faction, and they have their own place. It's their own town, and they're able to operate outside of there, and people can choose to take stuff to them or the sovereign representatives that they are now revealing to be, for sure, Grand Maritime Union people. And then in season 21, we go right back out to finishing up Flameheart, with us venturing back to the Sea of the Damned to try and battle the Dark Brethren court, to try and find some way to keep the Dark Warsmith from being able to bring her fleets further into Sea of Thieves, to try and wrestle control from Flameheart. And maybe that fails, and as such, they grab a foothold somewhere in Sea of Thieves as well too. And we now have a new faction with the Dark Brethren court, who are the opposition to the Reapers in sense, but they are going to offer us different rewards or different titles or different values that go against Flameheart in their own way of trying to maintain their own sense of worth in Sea of Thieves, while trying to wrestle control away from both Ramsey, the Grand Maritime Union, and the Reapers, as they stake their claim on different parts of Sea of Thieves. And then we go even further, and we have this kind of process of leapfrogging from story to story to story. We're always progressing, but each story will get its own time and its own like 3-month arc to kind of work through what's going on, so that you aren't just constantly berated by the same storyline month after month after month after month for seasons, until it's finally at its finale, and you're like, I am over hearing about Reapers. Get them out of here. I'm done with it. Please bring in someone fresh and new to the Sea of Thieves so that we can start to hear more about their story. And I think that if I was in Mike's position, if I was next to him at the table where they're having meetings about the discussion about the future of Sea of Thieves and the planning that they want to do outside of feature sets, just focusing on story, I would love to have that be the way that Sea of Thieves progresses, because I think that the adventures did a great job of giving us snippets of story that were delivered in small bite-sized chunks, very hard for development, very nourishing for the community, because it was always fun to have something to look forward to. And I think that seasons can help kind of fill that role without necessarily having to feel beholden to constantly moving that story forward every single season until it finally reaches its end goal. We can leapfrog a little bit and kind of introduce stuff in one chunk, take a break, go to a different story, and then come back to it after a season and give like a little refresher of people like who may not have been around or missed out on 2 seasons ago when the widow was dug up and her skeleton dragged around, and then she was brought back from the Sea of the Damned to re-embody her skeleton to be the queen of King Flameheart, and together they ruled the Devil's Roar with an iron fist as they created their foothold between Ashen Reaches and Ruby's Fall, all the way up to Flintlock and Fetcher's Rest, using Flameheart's burial chamber as a throne room filled with gold and gems and veil stones and all the crazy stuff that, you know, people come up with on their fan fiction and stuff like that. That's, you know, I hope for stuff like that when it comes to these different seasons. And the thing that was at the core of it back in the day was always the build rats. It always came back to them because they were the ones who wanted us to go on that adventure. And Lorena used to be part of that. And a lot of people kind of made fun of the fact that, you know, she would always say the same thing. There was always some way to try and get your attention. And a lot of people got annoyed with it, myself included at times, where I was like, I get it. I'm here. You don't have to say it every time I walk up. I know who you are. I know what you're doing. We've been through this for the last 2 months. It's okay. It's okay. You can take a break, find a stool, you know, put pineapples on it if that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. I don't care, but I get it, you know? So I'm going to miss Build Rats being the main way that we have content delivered to us as like an introduction to what the new season is going to bring with us. Them moving more to the front and center UI approach is done well. I think that the way that they've done the seasonal tab and rehashing the adventure system that they had prior was smart. It was efficient. And I think that they've done a really nice job of kind of showcasing how this looks. Spelling errors aside, or whatever the heck the weeks, days is, that, you know, that'll get ironed out in a patch and nobody will even remember it was a thing. But I do like the fact that they've done such a good job of introducing how they want to go about with seasonal content in the releases. But then I got to the smugglers stuff and what we're actually getting. All right, the code that you've been wondering what's going to actually happen in the episode is the rare ruby emote that is usable in Sea of Thieves. You must redeem on xbox.com/redeem code or on your console. And the code is for K as in kite, C as in Charlie, P as in Papa, X as in X-ray, 4, G as in game, Y as in yellow, T as in Tom, 9, 4, W as in watermelon, X as in X-ray, R as in Romeo, J as in Juliet, H as in hat, 3, D as in dog, 2, P as in Papa, 7, 4, 7, J as in Juliet, Z as in zebra. Good luck to those out there. And I have another code for later on, probably next week. Also, shout out to Trickster, who is the one that actually provided this code for the rare ruby emote. So the Smugglers League, this is an interesting one because I've already waxed poetic about my dreams and goals of what I thought this could be, where I think it could still go. And some of the import that I think they're going to have down the line, especially given some of the storylines that I think we're going to start seeing kind of ramp up as we move further and further from the way that they were producing content to the way that they want to produce content now. So we've got smugglers leagues. And if you haven't noticed, if you go to the map table, there is a route or a route that starts from Smuggler's Bay and goes down to Crescent Isle. If you do the voyage for the Smugglers League, this is where you will start. You will start at Smuggler's Bay, or Smuggler's Bay, or you'll go down to Crescent Isle. I think it actually works vice versa, but from my experience, it's always been just going from Smugglers to Crescent. I have yet to, well, no, that's not true. I have had one where Crescent, they have me go down and actually take stuff back up to Solomon, which honestly, fantastic. Let me just go back and forth if that's the route, because if I'm going back and forth and that route is something that is shown on every single map, including well, actually, no, I won't say that it includes the what's it called? The tables that you actually find in the world. Like if you go to Port Merrick, it has the table or the map, the giant map on the back of the Merchant Alliance area. I don't know what you would call this thing, but yeah, the Merchant Alliance has their little area. They have that big map table. You don't actually see the route on that one, but you do see the little icon for the smuggler. So it shows like a little smuggler icon at Crescent Isle. It shows a little icon at Smuggler's Bay. There's one at Old Faithful. There's one at Crooked Masts. There's one that is at Crook's Hollow, and then there's one at Plunder Valley. So those are the 6 that you need to know. So if you pick up smuggler loot, that is in particular like a message in a bottle where it tells you to go to one particular place, then it's going to be one of those 6 islands, which means that it's prime for people who want to try and abscond with smuggler loot, even though I don't think that is actually necessary right now. But having those 6 islands is a kind of a good start to the smugglers. At present, we don't have anything out in the Roar. There's no commentary to think that is going to change at the moment, but it is something that could change in the future. But I've effectively had stuff tell me to go from Crooked Masts, which I hate, and it's even worse now, to Old Faithful, which I think is great, and actually one of the best changes for Old Faithful, because you approach from the south end, and Hidir is just, I like that character. I think he's cool. The one at Crooked Masts, I will admit, I do like that character. I'm blanking on their name, but I like the background that they have. It's a good story. But realistically, you kind of kick things off with Solomon, and he's kind of like the captain for the smugglers, even though the crew is 6 people strong, and kind of goes against the whole idea of like the biggest ship being the galleon and 4 players. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're all smugglers at some way. And you've got different actual, what's it called? You got actual chronicles that you need to read through as well too. But the Smugglers League now provide on-demand voyages for the quest table. They're not a trade company, but they do have voyages, tasking crews with covertly transporting dangerous and fragile high-value goods. I did talk about a little bit about that before. The route will now direct players down the same treacherous path marked on the ship's map, where other opportunist crews can actually lie in wait. Additionally, there are messages in a bottle. And for the duration of Season 17, any message in a bottle discovered outside the Devil's Roar will offer a sneaky smuggler's run along a route hidden from the map, providing lucrative rewards. Which, let me tell you, for those of us that have still been working on the crates and the deliveries for Merchant Alliance, where you have to get a message in a bottle, either from one of the books or from a message just out in the world that is having you go and deliver certain crates, like whether it's kegs, crates of wood crates or fruit crates or cannonball crates. Trying to get those finished during Season 17 is nigh impossible. In fact, it really frustrates me because I'm 2 away from completing my fruit crates. But the intent here is they want people out and about in the seas to find messages in a bottle that direct them to smugglers' loot. Now, I have some big issue with some of the loot. Some of the loot you can turn in to different factions, different trade companies. So you can go to sovereigns and you can drop stuff off. Some of the loot that you think you'd be able to turn into the sovereigns or a trade company, you can't turn in. So the sovereigns will take the obsidian ashen winds skulls. They will not take the Timu version of the siren skulls. They will also not take any paintings as well. So there are some things that you can turn into the sovereigns or the trade companies and they'll be fine with it. Others, they won't. Some of the smuggler loot you can take to any smuggler. If you do a voyage or you find a message in a bottle and you go and grab the cargo from that person, you have to deliver it to a specific smuggler. And that's kind of frustrating. Just at a core level, because it means that you have to go and segregate your loot the way you would is if you were picking up cargo deliveries for the Merchant Alliance, which I know very much makes sense given the nature of what the smugglers are. Some people are going to have certain loot that they want that you need to deliver to them, and they're not looking for just anything. They're not reapers, right? So while in a lore sense, I understand why they're doing what they're doing, it is frustrating to have a hidden way or a non, I'm trying to think of a good way to kind of describe this, because certain items, if you walk up to it, will instantly tell you in a contextual sense where you need to deliver it. They will tell you right away, hey, this needs to get delivered to a representative of trade company. Other stuff, you have to interact with it, and it will then tell you where you can go to deliver it. And in some cases, they tell you, you have to deliver this to a specific person. There's no unified approach to how you turn or how you discover where certain loot that has to get turned into specific people or trade companies is represented in the game until you run up to the person that you're trying to sell it to and they tell you. So you can't just trust that every piece of smuggler loot will be accepted by any smuggler in any of the 6 different locations. You have to make sure that you are paying attention to what you grab, who you grab it from, and if it needs to go to a specific smuggler. There have been so many times so far in the short amount of time that I've been playing the update that I've accidentally grabbed the wrong pig picture and taken it to a smuggler who says, no. You have to deliver this pig picture to another person, but I will happily take your other pig picture. And at that point, I'm sitting here thinking, well, I nailed the alliteration on that. It is frustrating that you won't take this pig picture. So I think that may be something that may come back as an update in the future. They may decide, okay, you know what? We're being a little particular about this. Maybe we could just ease up a little on the requirements, or make it a little more front facing so that it's a little more clear just by at a glance when you're looking at the loot, if this is loot that belongs to a specific person or not. Which, you know, if there was a way to do it in the UI that said the person's name, or I don't know, maybe a picture of the person, I think that'd be even more interesting to kind of like approach loot as like a, you know, you look at this painting, Hadir wants this painting. Well, it says, hey, deliver to Hadir, shows image of person's face, or hey, the Deadshot Charlotte over on Lone Cove wants this thing of rum because she's out, so has a little picture, Deadshot Charlotte, has a little little text there that says, hey, deliver to Deadshot Charlotte. As you run up to it, not let's interact with everything, because to be perfectly honest, grabbing a piece of loot, moving it over and like looking at it doesn't take much time, but boy, that can get frustrating when you're sorting out a lot of different loot. Nobody likes to do it when they're actually checking like the commodity crates and they're like, okay, which ones are going where, who's selling high, who's selling low. It's one of the reasons people don't do it. They will literally go and just grab everything and shove it into the person who's first willing to accept it, whether it's selling high or selling low. They don't care if they'll take it, they'll just give it to them. So those are kind of like the initial thoughts that I have as far as the actual loot, as well as the voyage that they've introduced, because that at its core is what they've brought to this season so far. One voyage for not a trade company that has 6 turn-in locations, with messages in a bottle being the main way that people are going to probably experience the smuggler's route. Now, there are commendations tied to this. You do have to go and actually do a certain number of the route itself. There's a few of these that you do actually have to make sure that you complete as well too. And they're all fairly simple. In fact, I think the one that most people will probably have the hardest time with are remembering to read the books, the manifests that you get, the chronicles. So there's the Gilded Fox Chronicle. There's the Shadow Current Chronicle, which I haven't even seen. There's the Wolf in Winter Chronicle and the Sapphire Steel Chronicle. So there's of those, you have to read part 1 and part 2 of each of those 4. And you have to read all 6 journals at all the smugglers' hideouts, which if you didn't know. So not only are there the physical items that you can turn in that you have to read as part of the commendations, but when you go to a smuggler, there's additionally journals at those locations that you also have to read that would give you a commendation as well too. So aside from that, there's also rum bottles of varying degrees. There's 3 different types. You've got the Floral Fate, the Dark Demise, and the Golden Greed rum crates that need to be delivered. And then, of course, there's like the Deliver 15 black powder barrels, which I think a great name that I saw in the Discord server was Black Betty's, because we've got Big Berthas in the game for the mega kegs, and Black Betty's with the black powder kegs. I like it. It makes sense to me. And then you've got, of course, like the different paintings, and with the different paintings, you've got the classic paintings, which are the lowest grade. You've got the refined paintings, and then you have the exquisite paintings that you need to turn in to be able to get those. So once you've done those, you need to make sure that you complete the smuggler's runs at least 5 times. You need to complete 3 of the smuggler routes. You need to discover 5 different smugglers' caches, which are just the emergent bits of smuggler loot that you can find washed up on shore. There will be a box there that have tipped open, and inside that area will be a few different things pertaining to different smuggler loot, whether it's skulls or paintings, manifests, crates of rum, kegs, things like that. And then the last commendation is tied to the reintroduction of the Reaper's Bones rowboats, which have that keg on the back. Spoiler alert, takes 3 snipes or 7 sword swipes to knock those if you're far away. So if you see one on the back of a boat and you're chasing them, just know that it's going to take at least 3 hits onto that for it to actually ignite the rowboat keg. But you do have to dock 10 of those for the commendation. And a lot of people have been kind of a little upset that those are so easy. And I will just remind people that for not that long ago, many people were complaining about how high the commendation requirements are, and that they are too difficult, and that Rare needs to go in and nerf how many things we need to turn in and how many things they're asking us to do. And I fear that Rare took that to heart almost too much, to a fault, if you will, that they've made things so simplistic for the commendations that it has completely gone the opposite side, where most of these, if you focus on them over the course of the first month, can get them knocked out very easily. Like, you really should not run into any trouble getting these. I think the rarity of the rum bottles is probably the biggest stopgap right now for me, where I just haven't seen certain rum bottles in my adventures. But I haven't even been playing as much as I think many other people are playing. So it's been very interesting to kind of see how the community has been reacting to this season so far, because I feel like there's not been a lot of introduction of new stuff with the messages in a bottles and the washed up loot and not even including the fact that they changed up the shipwrecks. So the shipwrecks are all now going to have smuggler's loot, and quite a lot of it as well too. But I haven't seen as many shipwrecks out in the world as I normally do. Typically, whenever you log into the game and you're out an outpost, you can generally sail from an island's distance away and find a shipwreck. And you can generally find shipwrecks on the path of the storm. And because the storm is server wide, it's the same every single server that you go to. You can head over to rarethief.com where they have the storm tracker, and it actually plots out where the storm is, where it's going to go, and where it's been. And along that route, you should always find shipwrecks, because that is the only way to get the black cloud wrecker fish, is to fish up wreckers in the middle of a storm. So it is guaranteed to be somewhere along that path of the storm that there should be a shipwreck. So if you're curious to try and go out and find some shipwrecks, just open up the Rare Thief Storm Chaser, look at where the storm's headed, and go to that path and start searching for a shipwreck along that path. Guaranteed you should be able to find it, unless the rules have changed with this season, in which case this is just past experience setting precedent for the future, and it's subject to change. I have not personally got time to actually test this out, so apologies if it's not 100% accurate. I think now would be a good time to talk about some of the stuff that I wanted to kind of address with the actual loot for the smugglers, because I think that it is fair to say that many people are a little underwhelmed by what we have so far in the game. We have rum bottles that are different colors. They're a reskin of what we've currently had available since basically the introduction of the game. We have manifests that were part of the Merchant Alliance that have been reskinned and turned into chronicles. We have skulls, both the Obsidian Ashen Wind skull and the dorky Siren Song one that is the Temu version available to us, which for whatever reason, and shout out to Caleb for noticing this, you can't run with that skull in the same fashion that you can't run with the Siren Skull, but it is not the same Siren Skull. So for whatever reason, they coded the Siren Skull in with the smuggler's loot, the same as the one that you get from the Siren Skull Voyage, which is interesting. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it does make running with skulls, because you can run with the Ashen Wind skull. As far as I know, I recall being able to do that, but you can't run with the Siren Skull for obvious reasons. When the Siren Song Voyage came out, they wanted to make sure that players had an opportunity to intercept the skull before the turn in. These things are getting dropped off the side of Sovereign's camps or Sovereign's tents, because you can't turn in the Siren Skull to the Sovereigns. They won't take them for whatever reason. And because of that, people get done with their session, they turn in what they can't, and then they just drop these skulls thinking that they can turn them in, because it's not a Siren Skull. At least it's not a Siren Skull associated with the Briggsy Voyage. So where are all these Siren Skulls coming from? Are they just, these just used up versions of the Siren Skull that we were getting for Briggsy? Also, why is Briggsy still needing these? How come that is something that hasn't changed as well too? So obviously lots of questions that kind of come up as a result of the loot that's available. But aside from, those ones right there, I'm trying to think, there's the black powder kegs, and the black powder kegs are just a bigger, meaner version of the mega kegs, which at this point really devalues what a regular keg is for. Which is kind of a shame, because I don't think anyone outside of the immediate need to use a keg are really going to utilize kegs anymore, especially when it's easy enough to be able to find these mega kegs. Now, once the season's done, they may turn down the frequency of these black powder kegs, which would kind of fall in line with how they've done stuff in the past, and would kind of like indicate like, hey, there is still value to the regular kegs and the mega kegs. You aren't going to find black powder kegs nearly as easily after the season, which would then kind of like put a little more value back into those kegs. But for all intents and purposes, I think at least during season 17, more people are going to grab a black powder keg off the shoreline, throw it into their hold, and go use it as they go to attack some other crew who are attempting some sort of, like voyage or what have you. So aside from the fact that I fear for the future of what kegs mean, it is very interesting to me that they are kind of just reskinning a lot of the different loot. And I did want to actually shout out Rare because I think that this was a positive change. They could have reskinned a chest. They could have very easily just taken a chest and labeled it Smuggler's Chest of Fortune or whatever they wanted, right? And they could have made that be the new thing that you have to get. And they didn't. They decided to actually go with paintings. And I think that the fact that the paintings are now a set piece of loot really does make me happy, because yes, they are just taking captaincy items that are just things that you attach to your ship and just making those a hand item that you can and just like grab and actually like move around with you. Like there's really not a whole lot of like surprise there, but I do like the fact that they didn't just go with chest, because I feel like that's the concern that I had going into this, was that they didn't have anything special up their sleeve. It was literally, let's make a new chest for people to use. But they didn't. They went with the actual paintings, which look cool. It's nice when you get a bunch of them. You can set them all down and actually have like a nice little like art gallery going for yourself. You can kind of see like there's even people who are the smugglers who are actually like painting themselves. So it makes me wonder, like, are they actually making fabrications of these paintings? Like, are they actually making replicas instead of just selling those? So I'm very curious kind of like why they decided to go that one. But I like what they've done with the loot. I know it is very much just a rehash. It's warmed up leftovers, as Davram would say. And I'm trying to think of like, how long before I get tired of this? How long before I get tired of them actually just rehashing old stuff? Because it doesn't feel great necessarily for them to do this. I think that it's one of those things where I'm like, I would have preferred all fresh loot and not just stuff that they've kind of reskinned. But the familiarity of this is nice because you kind of know what to expect. You grab a crate of rum, regardless of the color of what it is, and there's going to be similar implications that if you mess around with this, you're going to crack it and it's going to have lower value as a result. But it does also pose the problem of people not being clear when they come into the game. They may not be paying attention, and they may think that this is something you can take to any outpost to bring to a merchant, because that's what merchants have been taking for years. And that's kind of concerning. Same thing with the manifest. You can take those just like you can take skulls to all of the Order of Souls people. Like they're the ones that dabble with those, except the Siren Skull, which is something that only Briggsy wants. And now that we have these new ones, people are probably thinking, okay, well, the frequency on these are pretty high, and I didn't have to opt into a Briggsy voyage to be able to get these. So these ought to be something that the Order of Souls would be interested in, given the nature of their trade company, but they aren't. Only smugglers will take them. So while I think it's nice to have like the paintings, it's nice to be able to walk around and grab those and drop them off and make like your own little pretty art gallery if you want, the novelty will eventually wear off. And I think that we are just at the end of the day left with loot that is effectively the same stuff that we've had, but not available to us in the same way, and not viable with the companies that we're familiar with. And we are going to rapidly see whether people are comfortable or not with having to take these to the different islands that they're at. Now, Crooked Masts, easier to get to. Smuggler's Bay, not so much. Old Faithful Island, very easy to get to. Crescent Isle, very easy to get to. Plunder Valley, not so much. Crooked Masts, or no, not Crook's Hollow, pretty easy to get to. So Some of these not fun, some of these decent enough as far as having to deliver the loot to them. Which all kind of comes down to the thing that I think will carry through with the season, which are the black powder kegs, black betties, if you will. And I think that this is something that a lot of us are engaging with. I think a lot of people are enjoying just how dangerous these are. And I think that because of the Smugglers League and these runs, that a lot of people are carrying them on and seeing people kind of try and figure out where these are going to be the safest is very, very funny, because I think even one of the smugglers have actually even talked about the fact that the best place to store these is going to be the crow's nest or the very front of the bowsprit. And given that these are a little more resilient than just normal kegs, it takes a few shots to kind of get one to explode. It does mean that, yes, it is a little bit safer to just kind of have them out there. But I was sailing tonight and I had 2 kegs on me and I had them in my sloop and I had them against the beam in the center, well, the slightly center section of the ship where the corner of my bed is, right across from the actual like wood crate or the wood barrel. And I was sailing and I came right through a red maw area. Like I was sailing through and I didn't even notice it at the time, but Big Red was literally right next to me and my heart sank. I was like, this is it. This is how this session ends. And he bit, and ironically, he hit the corner of my ship where not only did I have to worry about the fact that he almost hit the keg on the back of the Reaper rowboat that I had, but the fire was not enough to actually ignite the keg that was down below deck. And I don't know how lucky folks are going to be getting, but I was very, very pleased to know that it was just enough to where I didn't have to suffer the indignation of dealing with the fact that I was willing to sail through a Big Red section there, and I should have very easily have just been absolutely decimated by it, and I wasn't, and I was like, okay, we're doing good, things are all right. But it is very fun to actually destroy skeleton ships now with these things when they have them on there, and it doesn't always take the first hit. Sometimes you have to hit them a couple times, find out where the spot is, but you can most definitely just decimate skeleton ships when you shoot them and you find out that they actually had a black powder keg on them. It's a glorious explosion, and I think that they really should have had this kind of explosion for the mega kegs, because I don't know why you would call a mega keg when these things are out in the open now. Maybe it's the difference between gunpowder and black powder. I don't know what that is. I thought all gunpowder was black powder. I thought it was just how much you had, but apparently there's a difference in how that works. But I don't care. I was very happy to kind of see the explosion that happens as a result of blowing these up. I think it is a really well done, but it does kind of say like, hey, this is the highlight for the season. These kegs are going to be the highlight. They've also gone and done some other stuff that I want to get into as well too. So let's take a break and actually jump into our next section here. All right, so let's get into the little things that changed with seasons that I don't think like many people are probably going to pay attention to because it's not the front and center features that are coming in, but things that I think are still going to be interesting. One, guilds are going to get a new emissary ledger item, to a new painting to be able to get, called the Moonrise Mariners painting, and the Unseen Deal ornament. And that's going to be something that actually kicks off, I believe, at the start of September, because we kicked off season 17 in the middle of a month. So ledger resets are going to kick off at the beginning of September. So don't worry too much about that unless you're behind on your guild emissary ledger rewards at the moment. The Hunter's Call emissary ledger now offers the Call of the Seas wheel and cannons alongside with the Assailant of Treacherous Targets title. So that's going to be something that if you guys are working on ledger emissaries, or emissary ledgers, I should say, proper way to actually call it. That is all going to be rolling over for the Hunter's Call. The Chest of Fortune is going to stick around in the Fortune of Fort of Fortune. It is not moving at present, and you can now earn the next grade of those. I am so far behind that it is well outside the desire of me to go worry about it. But I know that for a lot of people, that is something that they are still working towards. So just a heads up that it is still going to be in the Fort of Fortune if you are looking for that Chest of Fortune. Reaper's chests. Talking about the Reaper's chests, crews chasing down the telltale beacon of Reaper's chests or Reaper's bounties can earn the next grade of the Reaper's Riches commendations and start unlocking access to those. Just as a heads up, those cannot be found in the Fort of the Damned this season. They have removed those from the Fort of the Damned. They have not replaced the loot as far as I know at the time of recording. So you will not be able to get any of those chests from the Fort of the Damned. You will only be able to find those in the actual shipwrecks. You're also going to be able to find the what's it called? The smuggler's loot in there as well too. So if you're going for smuggler's loot and you're going for your Reaper chest and Reaper's bounties, just start digging around for some of those different shipwrecks, because that's going to be the only way you actually get access to those. One of the other things that they did that was an undocumented change, which I'm sure at some point they'll probably actually document it and it just got overlooked, was guilds got a random increase of 6 slots. So if you're in a guild and you're looking at how guilds are effectively like designed, they've got 24 slots available to you, which if you're wondering why 24, it's a full server's worth of galleons. It is 6 galleons on a server with 4 players per, which means that you can have a full guild's worth or full server's worth of guild members. That has now been increased another guild crew's value of up to 30. So for my own purposes, I have 2 guilds. 2 of those guilds are just for patrons, and they are for patrons who want to be able to get into a guild to progress it. They are able to join in. I have to friend them. They have to friend me back. They have to be an active patron, and they get access to the guild, which is, it's a good way of me kind of having a way of like having guild members who are dedicated to working on the guild stuff. They're also trying to get access to some of the commendations that you can't normally get. But I only have so many slots to be able to open that up to. Like, there's only so many people that I can bring into a guild. I can't just bring in my entire community and have them apply and then have that approval in some sort of normal fashion. I have to go through the rigmarole of having them added to my thing. So one of the undocumented changes was that they were increasing the number of people that can be on the crew or in the guild, which at this point, I'm genuinely not sure what the restriction is for this, but it would be really fantastic if they just opened that all the way up. If I want to have 200 or 400 people in my guild, just allow that and let them have that moniker on their thing. So that way I don't feel like I am restricted in my community. And I know that that's a tall ask. I know that there's a lot to that I don't understand, but I am just vocalizing my desire with what I want to see happen with the guilds. But that changes in now. So if you're like me and have a guild that was pretty much full and had to open up a second guild to be able to give players an opportunity to still be a part of the Keelhauled crew, there are now more slots open on the main guild. So anyone in the second guild, if you want to transfer over, you're going to have to leave that guild or let me know so that I can kick you out of the guild and then send you an invite that you'll be able to address within like 24 or 48 hours, however long that guild invite lasts. I think it lasts a week, but you need to make sure that you log in and actually get that accepted, or tell me that it didn't come through so that we can jump on a ship and I can give you the little guild invite through the actual like emote, which is actually a pretty good emote because it's worked every single time I've ever had to do it. But just a nice little improvement. I don't know why they didn't increase it up to something higher. I don't know why we went with 6 more crew members as opposed to 4. I don't know why. There were choices made that I'm genuinely like confused about, but I'm not gonna say that it's bad. I'm gonna say that it's a good start. So, looking at the rest of this, I'm trying to take a look and see what else were some of the things that they changed. And I'm trying to rack my brain and think like, what was something else that I feel like there's one more thing that I'm forgetting that I know that they changed, but I can't quite recall what it was. And that's definitely kind of like a gosh darn it, I can't remember kind of situation. But some of the other, it wasn't an undocumented change, but one of the other things that they brought to us in this season are the pirate profiles. So this is the purchasable profile that allows you to create an additional pirate on Sea of Thieves. That is now live if you want to go create a second pirate. The more and more I thought about this, the more and more I wanted to actually do it. The fear of getting a Shrouded Ghost on my second pirate and not getting that credit towards the first pirate is enough to keep me away from doing this. So if Rare wants to figure out how to make that work, great. If they don't, I'm going to be real hesitant about what I do with a second pirate, because I would hate for me to create a second pirate only for it to get the easier opportunity at getting a Shrouded Ghost because of the way that the spawn system supposedly works. It would be really painful for me to get 2 Shrouded Ghosts on 2 different pirates on the same account and not have it count for both. That's something that I personally would like to make sure that is account wide before I spend money on another pirate profile, if that makes sense. But you can now purchase additional pirate profiles, unlocking access to multiple pirate slots from the pirate tab in the front end menu. Each pirate will have their own journey with separate progressions, rewards, and visual customizations. Players can open up these extra profiles by purchasing a pirate deed, which I think I've explained in the past, either from the pirate menu or from the pirate emporium, where bundles of 3 deeds can be purchased at a discount. Why people would want to have 4 pirates in a game that is already as grindy as it is a dream and a hope that I think only Rare could have imagined. I genuinely don't know. Most of the fervor around this has asked people, why even have this? Who is asking for this? And I think that there's validity in that question. I also think that there's validity in the necessity for it. Why people would want 4 pirates is definitely a question I would be willing to ask. Enough to justify knowingly at the beginning of the introduction to this that they want to tell people, hey, we know you want 4 pirates on this account. We're going to sell you a discounted bundle for the pirate deeds so you can get rewarded for the early adoption of wanting 4 pirates on your profile. So you're welcome. I don't see that need, but I'm not going to yuck someone's yum, right? If you want it, then congratulations, you can get it. But that is now available to you if that's something that you want. It'll be very, very interesting to see if Rare talks about the engagement with it. It'll be really interesting to see if anyone that is a content creator starts to embrace it and start like coming up with their own things for that. But at the moment, the fear of losing out on the Shrouded Ghost commendation checkbox on my main pirate, where I already have 1, is too high. So I don't know how that's going to work. That unfortunately, that was something that I was just thinking about the other day. What else should you know about this? Okay, well, Rare is still doing the 40th anniversary. I talked a little bit about that at the beginning, just to make sure that you get that hat. So just be aware of that. I don't know why I said it like that. Apologies. I wasn't trying to offend anyone. It reminds me of Frau Blucher from, what's the name of the Mel Brooks film? Young Frankenstein. There we go. I was going to get there. You don't have to worry. I was going to get there at some point. So the Emporium's got new content. The Riptide Rodeo ship set. I've talked about this last week, I believe. Haven't bought it yet. Probably will. Knowing me, depends on how I feel about the rest of the season. I might just wait for a sale on the sales. Yeah, it's what I mean. It's what I mean. Don't laugh at me. So that's there. The Ghostly Curse, Elysian, I can never say the name of that dog, is available. It does require Pirate Legend status, which that's an interesting choice. Requiring pirates to be a pirate legend before you can pay money, real money, for a commendation is levels of design and marketing that rivals Destiny 2. Because I've only ever seen Bungie have the literal to charge you for something in the store that you have to buy it in store, and you have to have done a certain thing in game to be able to get access to that. And most of the time it's a physical item. Most of the time you have to complete a raid in game to be able to buy a jacket or a ring or a badge or something like that. Like the store will give you a discount code that will allow you to purchase it. They won't even sell it to you unless you've actually got the requirements in game to be able to say that you did this thing to be able to spend actual money on it. And there's knockoffs available too, which is the real irony of the thing. There's like knockoffs for the jackets and stuff because they get these from the vendors. They don't get them from personal, like they went out and sold or hired a company to make a bunch of these for people. But Rare requiring Pirate Legends status for this pupper, which actually I'm going to go to the Pirate Emporium right now and take a look at it, is wild to me that they are willing to force people to be a specific thing in game before you can spend the $6.50 or the $7 in ancient coin to be able to get it. But it's a new age. It's a new era for Sea of Thieves. I'm going to buy it right now. Actually, no, I'm not. I almost bought it. I literally almost just clicked yes a second time to be able to buy it. I actually don't think I am going to buy this because I don't like the fact that they require you to be a pirate legend when spending actual money for items in game, because I don't like that practice. I don't like the fact that they are going to get it, because this is the slippery slope, right? First, it's Pirate Legends. Next, it's the Curse of Bones. You can't get the skeletal dodo bird unless you have level 569 in Reapers in the Servants of Flame. That is the slippery slope I am worried about. So I am not going to buy this dog, as much as I think it's a cute little pupper, little ecto pupper. I'm not going to spend that money because I don't like this practice and I don't want to support it. And if you see me with it, call me out. This is probably not actually mine. But looking at the rest of this Riptide Rodeo stuff, standard Sea of Thieves Emporium content. I think it's good, well themed. I think they did a nice job with the implementation. I'm still kind of preferenced to the last ship set that I bought, which was the Destiny 2 stuff. But I do like the kind of like bull, or no, not bullhorn. What is it? Oh, it's a bull. Is it a bullhorn? I don't know. It's an animal sort-esque natured creature that has it's a gunslinger. It's kind of like old kind of westerny gunslinger. Reminds me a lot of Hellboy for some reason. I don't know why, but cool looking thing. Very Texasy, longhorn steers, I think is what I'm thinking right now. But that's available now on top of the pirate profiles. You've also got the Fan the Hammer emote. That's a free one. Make sure you're getting in to actually like get that going as well too. I just had a Shadow Moss spawn on me on Safer Seas while I'm watching different things as I go around, and I'm not even going to kill it because Shadow Moss don't count in Safer Seas. Also, stop rocking the boat, Mr. Fish. So that's going on there. As always, they've recently been doing this tradition. You get the login bonus For people that are looking to celebrate Rare's 40th anniversary, you get the Rare Ruby Eye Patch for free just by arriving in the seas. So log in, make sure you're getting that. The Outpost has a refresh stock of stuff. You've got the Ruby Celebration eyeshadow, lipstick, makeup, along with the red buckled boot, red sailor bandana, and the red stitched shirt. So if you want to run around as Ken from Street Fighter, you can do that now. Congratulations to Capcom for sneaking their characters in Sea of Thieves without people really paying attention. The Ruby's Reaper Mark sales are in the Pirate Emporium, which that is actually something I will probably buy because it's actually time limited. And you can still get the Rare Ruby emote pack through the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate Perks program. So season 10 legacy common cosmetics are now available in the Outpost stocks. So stuff that was previously available in season 10 is now in the Outpost. So you can go purchase those with doubloons. Players can also pick up the Intrepid Explorer clothing set, as well as the Explorer bobbed hair, braided hair, and beard. The Compass of Nuanced Navigation, the Spyglass of Skillful Steering, and Bucket of Eternal Cooking are also available. If you know what those look like, impressing. I will be very impressed with you. The time-limited Gilded Sovereign items, however, will remain exclusive to players who participated in Season 10. So that's kind of what's going on there. There's been some other changes to the actual gameplay. So if you are looking to kind of play on controller, you now have the ability to separate keybinds from a range of actions. These actions can now be customized independently or share a button. Secondary interact and swap weapons, secondary interact and reload, and the primary interact and reload. So if you've ever been on a sloop and you've tried to pull out your weapon or swap your weapon to something else, and you accidentally grab Briggsy's Voyage, or you accidentally grab a storage crate and open up a fruit crate, and you're sitting there looking at a bunch of mangoes and coconuts, and you're trying to think to yourself, this is not the eye of reach I deserve, but this is the eye of reach that I'm getting. Then you can now actually separate these key binds. For a long time, it's been a pain point, I think, on controller players. I think it's why I prefer mouse and keyboard from time to time, because I will play with either. I don't, it doesn't really mess with me too much. I do play a little bit more cash if I'm playing on controller, though, just because my response time isn't as quick as with mouse and keyboard. The separate keybinds, it's the MMOer in me. I'm just generally more attuned to that. But overall, this is a fantastic update for controller players, and one that's kind of going under the radar as far as I know. Not too many people have actually adjusted that. So if you're listening to this, please give yourself a mental note somewhere to kind of remind yourself that you should go and take a look at these interacts, test them out, see what feels good. So that way you can still have like a little bit of less fear of running into that instance where you accidentally open up a crate or grab onto something when all you were trying to do was unsheath your sword to go into your swordnado. Like that's all I'm saying. It's just make sure you're kind of giving yourself that opportunity to not forget about that. There's been improvements to the cross region matchmaking. So just as a heads up there have been, I'm going to say that there's been improvements to performance. I think that those are going to kind of see themselves out by the end of the season. We'll actually, take a look back and actually see like, okay, did this actually happen or did this not actually happen? Because sometimes it feels like it happens, but then you get halfway through a season and whoopsie daisy, it's not happening the way you want it to. But so far I've had fairly good luck not running into the issue of being able to purchase crates and get them from the merchant shop. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case for everyone. I'm just saying from my own personal experience, the times where I've gone in and bought a crate from the merchants, I immediately get it. And that's kind of nice because that doesn't always happen. I'm going to be perfectly honest. You go into the merchants and you're just like, hey, Mildred, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. I really love this storage crate. I think it would be fantastic if I got it. And so I'm going to give you gold because I know you like gold. And I'm going to take the crate. Okay. So we're going to have this transaction where I do my part and then you do your part. And we don't have to do anything weird with the hunter's call or the shipwright. Okay. And so far, every time I've gone and talked to Mildred and be like, hey, Mildred, just here for my daily storage crate. If you don't mind, here's the 5,000 gold that I know you like, and I will take said crate. And so far, I've been good. So far, I have not had to go over to the hunter's call emissary and being like, I might need a hook today because it might go through Mildred if I don't get this storage crate. So let me just buy this harpoon as a precautionary use. And then I'm going to walk over to Mildred with it and ask Mildred once more for the storage crate that I paid 5,000 gold for. So it's a little bit of an insurance, you know, when you buy insurance on something, you buy that harpoon, that little, you know, and that spear. And I walk over to I walk over to good old ancient Mildred over here. And I think she's going to be nice to me today. And I'm going to get that storage crate. And I'm going to put that little harpoon, that little spear into the ground right next to where she is, because you cannot hold a spear and a storage crate. So you have to put one down. So you gently and firmly throw the hunting spear next to where she's at so that you don't lose track of it, God forbid. And you go and you politely ask her for that storage crate again. And I have not had to buy that insurance lately. And that's been nice. Will that have to be the case down the line? Almost certain at this point. But I'm fairly certain that for the time being, Mildred and I are on good speaking terms. Our trades have been done without insurance required. But I do appreciate the hunter's call being right next to them with those spears for a measly 250 gold, which for all intents purposes, they've been very good about because they're literally right there. I can go hand them 250 out of my pocket and walk over and pick up a spear. You know, there was a time where they were like, are you sure you're registered to be able to wield one of these? And they wouldn't give me the spears. And I understand, you know, first time sailor walking out there being like, I know how to use these. I'm not going to hurt someone with them. They're going to be for the sharks. And they're like, are you sure they're going to be for the sharks? And you're like, yes, I'm going to be. And you'd accidentally drop them or you'd throw them and you'd miss. And they'd be like, see, this is what we were worried about. We were really concerned that you weren't going to be qualified to be able to use these. Nowadays, not so much a problem. I buy a harpoon, I grab it, or a spear, whatever they call them. And they give it to me right away. And I'm like, Alderic, young buddy, you're fantastic. Thank you so much for providing me with the resources I pay you good money for. And I appreciate being able to have access to these spears. Being a veteran of spears, I can ensure that Mildred will know when I go and ask for my storage crate, it will be used appropriately if I don't get that storage crate. So this is kind of good stuff for Sea of Thieves. I feel like we are in a good place. It's a safe place where you don't have to require any gratuitous use of spears, and you don't have to be some sort of 1920s mob boss when you're walking up with a couple of goons on your crew and being like, Mildred, I need the crate. I need it. I need you to just hand it over right now, please. So that's always nice. It's a pleasant thing in life, and I think I think we always like to have that kind of pleasantness in our day to day when going around Sea of Thieves. But outside of that, just a reminder, they are going to be doing the 48-hour community emissary with the pop-up plunder and all the jazz that comes with that on the 30th through the 1st. So at the end of the month, they're going to be doing that. So the episode is going strong, but it's also going long. And I want to make sure that you guys have something for next episode as we get into the conversation with the actual gold hoarders who are going to be joining me. So hopefully some folks have gotten some time out on the seas. They've gotten their thoughts on the smugglers, and we'll be able to kind of chat with them. I've already recorded a backup episode for the week of the community event because I'm going to be traveling as I'm looking to move. So just as a reminder, that episode is going to be recorded for future release. We had a little bit of trouble with the audio. I'm going to work on it up until the point where I've actually got like before it has to go out. But already kind of, going in that we had some trouble recording some of that. So it may sound a little off. I'm going to work hard to make sure that it doesn't. But there's only so much time that I have left before this move. So just as a heads up. So apologies in advance, if you will. Outside of that, pirates, I think that's going to do it. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, always feel free to reach out to me. You can do so best way, honestly, through the Discord. Join up on the Keelhauled Discord. Link is in the show notes, as always, to just kind of talk about stuff that's going on. If you're not sure about something, there's plenty of folks in the Discord as well too that have sailed quite a bit and are generally very knowledgeable about what their experience is. They're able to speak as much as they can about the anecdotal evidence that they have, so they can try to advise from what they've seen and what they've heard, plus their own experience. If I cannot sufficiently explain what's going on, so just as a heads up about that as well too. But otherwise, the comments down in the YouTube version of the podcast have been read. They have been entertaining. The one issue that I have when I ask for something is when I realize I do not know what this means. And I got a comment the other day, and I'm trying to see which episode it was on, because I don't think it was 378. I think it was on 379. Red box top hat equals curse. And boy, howdy, was I beating my brain over that one for a while. I could not for the life of me figure out what that meant. So I'm gonna just straight up ask Plesky or Purple Sky, not Plesky, Purple. I know how to read. It's okay. Under a Purple Sky, if you could just in this episode, if you could just like subtitle that for me, I'm very curious what that actually means, because I'm not smart enough to work some of that stuff out as much as I would like to think that I am. But thank you so much for everyone who has been engaging in that content on YouTube. I really appreciate it. Oddly enough, it does wonders for the algorithm, and just kind of helps other people find the content. And we have had some folks starting to kind of find the content, which has been nice. So if you're enjoying this, always feel free to like, subscribe, always feel free to comment to help with the YouTube algorithms. Even if it's something as dumb as two emotes. I don't even care necessarily what you put, because it's probably going to get my attention and I'm probably going to be very confused about it. So that's, you got a good one up on me on that one at the very least. But you can always reach out there. You can always reach out through the Patreon. There's a chat channel as well as DMs open there. I'm on social media and I try to answer some stuff. There's going to be limitations on what I engage with, because just there's certain things where I'm just kind of like, I'm not sure if this is a bait. I'm not sure if this is a person. It could be a person baiting me. It could be a robot baiting me. It could be an alien baiting me to say or do something. So some things I always read stuff, but I don't always engage with everything, because sometimes I feel like maybe someone's trying to get me to say or engage with something that may or may not be in my safety realm, my safety blanket, if you will. But I always do appreciate people reaching out to me and try to get back with them as best I can. So I do apologize if that doesn't always hit the mark, but I do always love the actual engagement aspect of that as well too. There is stuff going on in Insiders, nothing too fancy. So I will probably save that for another time. It is nice that they are updating it. And there is an insider channel in the Discord as well, if you would like to actually engage in the conversation being had over there as well too. I would be curious to hear what people's thoughts on some of the changes that they've recently introduced to the new insider build are, and if they're planning on engaging with that in retail at launch, or if it's not quite ready. So just kind of a little teaser there. If you guys want to go check that out, feel free to go check that out. If you're not sure what or how, feel free to reach out and ask, because we can always try and find some resources for you as well to get you some answers there. But outside of that, pirates, I think that's going to do it for this episode. So thank you. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.